Don't you think your mother is playing a sly joke on us? Regina asked her husband, shivering in the drizzling rain. The train arrived 20 minutes ago. Even my mother would not make such a cruel joke, Shawn answered, and meeting her eyes, added doubtfully, It would be too much even for her, Ginger. Last night, Regina and Shawn received a message from Shawn's mother. I'm arriving tomorrow morning at Grand Central Station. Dana Fletcher didn't like unnecessary words. This information instantly made Regina feel despondent. Why is she coming? The husband flustered. What happened? She didn't even give the number of the carriage. Shawn tried to call his mother for a long time to no avail. Regina looked at him with a sad chuckle. It's no use, Shawn. You know she can't stand shouting into the phone to the full carriage. Those are her words, especially since she knows you'll try to call her right back. Talking to her son in front of other passengers of the train? It's not comme il faut. It has been raining prickly since morning. Of course, no one thought to bring an umbrella in a rush. The train had arrived a long time ago. For 10 minutes, Shawn and Regina moved from one carriage to another, looking out for a familiar face in the motley, noisy crowd. Slowly, the wave of people left the platform. The last porter wheeled past with a cart laden with colorful suitcases, and the couple, soaked to the skin, stomped under the station clock, staring intently into the unknown distance. Regina sadly looked at the bouquet of wildflowers, which turned into a pathetic, wilted bush. Ginger, look, I think that's her. Shawn excitedly pointed to a lady with a big bag and a suitcase on wheels as she stepped out of the back of the carriage. It's not the royal thing to rush and push through a shouting crowd. Shawn rushed toward his mother, kissed her, and took her luggage. With every step of the approaching mother-in-law, Regina desperately wanted to disappear into thin air. It's quite strange because she's such an attractive woman. 50-something years old, tall, fit, and well-dressed. But her stern face radiated such unbelievable arrogance. The intense stare, the imperious crease of the pressed lips, even her heels clattered menacingly on the platform, and that was of no surprise since she was the school principal. Hello, Dana. You look great. Regina smiled amiably and tried to slip a bouquet to her husband unobtrusively. Good morning, Regina. Her mother-in-law indifferently nodded and continued talking to her son. Anyway, I have almost 2 months vacation, so I'm going to stay with you for a long time. Well, that's great. You haven't visited us for a long time, Mom. It's for you. Shawn belatedly handed his mother slightly dented flowers. How lovely. Dana was sincerely glad. It's so nice that you remember my preferences. I love wildflowers since my youth. It wasn't me. Regina bought them. She remembers everything, her son bragged. Well, that's what I thought, her mother-in-law said casually, cheap and mean. Dana Fletcher behaved in her usual. In the car, she immediately pulled a glossy magazine from her bag. Shawn asked solicitously, How was your ride, Mommy? Keep your eyes on the road, Mom commanded, and then she stared at the magazine. Regina silently turned away to the window. The relationship with her mother-in-law did not work out from the first day they met. 7 years ago, Shawn had brought the bride to his hometown to introduce her to her mother. Dana looked closely at the embarrassed thin girl with the luxurious mane of dark red hair. Regina, isn't that Latin for queen? It's a beautiful name. It's binding. My mother gave me this name, said Regina, who was eager to add her voice to the conversation. Yeah, mother-in-law to be agreed. Unfortunately, parental love is blind, and I named my son Shawn. Dana lovingly patted her son on the back of the head and immediately forgot about the guest, sternly asked, What about Nancy? She is waiting for you. Mom, there you go again. Shawn shrugged it off. You and Mrs. Nina Riley clung to the idea of marrying kids, and Nancy and I weren't even asked for our opinion. Well, I'll see you flapping your guilty eyes in front of Nancy and Nina in an hour. Did you invite them over for dinner? He was indignant. Of course I did. Who do you think cooked so many delicious dishes while I was at school all day long? Nina and Nancy. How could I not invite them? Shawn was always known for his impenetrable character, so instead of him, Regina flapped her guilty eyes. Nancy, noticing that Regina certainly didn't feel comfortable, found the right moment to whisper to her in the kitchen. Don't worry. Dana the Severe does not give up without a fight. But I have a fiancé, so I'm not interested in Shawn. And why Dana the Severe? Smiled Regina. The kids at school nicknamed her so. When Zach was born, Dana came to visit them in the capital on the nearest weekend. She tenderly looked at the baby lying in the crib for a long time, then said with a single regret, "This is our blood. We cannot refuse. He looks like Shawn when he was a baby. He was so sweet then. And his eyes are blue like my daughter's." Regina's mother couldn't help it. "All babies have blue eyes." Mother-in-law was indignant. "They'll get darker. Thank goodness he's not a redhead." Dana loved her grandson. 2 summers in a row, she took him for a couple of weeks to her town, sending buckets with fruits all the time. But she still did not perceive her daughter-in-law as a family member. The only thing that saved the poor girl was the distance between the 2 cities. Perhaps 5-year-old Zach was the only person in the family who was really excited about his grandmother's arrival. He was enthusiastically looking at the toys, showing off in front of his parents in a new brand-name sneakers. For the next day, Regina stepped here and there on the cherry stones, which the happy son dropped on the floor. During this visit, Dana the Severe did not change her habits. Within a couple of days, Regina felt like a completely worthless creature. It turned out that she didn't clean the apartment properly, dressed mediocre, didn't raise her son properly, and cooked average meals. The mother-in-law made comments so artfully that any response would look rude and silly. Often, the second mother proved by her own example that everything could be done much better. Staying alone on weekdays, Dana Fletcher did not waste her time. Regina was no slob, but never before had her apartment sparkled with such cleanliness. Never had the linens looked so brilliantly white, as if her mother-in-law had loaded them into some other magical washing machine. "Dana, thank you so much for your help. We have such a madhouse going on in the office right now. I have no time for anything." From the bottom of her heart, Regina thanked Dana and immediately got an answer. "Don't mention it. I just can't stand to see my grandson suffocating with the dust of ages past." Having the patience of an angel, her daughter-in-law did not react to humiliation for a long time. But one day, Regina snapped. Once during dinner, Dana was picking at the cake with her spoon, Regina's pride, and after cautiously tasting a tiny slice, she uttered the following words. "Well, this biscuit is not fluffy, and the cream is too heavy, but all in all, it's edible." That night, Regina had hysteria with her husband in the bedroom. Then she couldn't stand it and went back to the kitchen, where her mother-in-law was playing solitaire. "Dana Fletcher, if you don't like the way I feed your son and grandson, why don't you cook yourself?" "Do you want me to do all the housework?" calmly asked her mother-in-law. "Well, why all? I will do the laundry and cleaning, and you will cook. Let's just switch the roles," said her daughter-in-law. "No problem," she agreed without blinking an eye. When they were already in bed, her husband sighed bitterly. "You shouldn't mess with her, Ginger. Now Zach and I will be starving. My mother was at school all the time. She never learned how to cook. Mrs. Nina Riley always cooked for us. She raised Nancy by herself. She didn't have much money, so Mom used to pay her for cooking. And everybody's happy." "You shouldn't have said that, Ginger. You shouldn't have." "Well, it's okay. You'll endure it for a couple of days." Regina tried to hide the triumph in her voice. Finally, the mother-in-law got into her own trap. It's not nice to gloat, but sometimes Regina has to be the winner too. The next day, when Regina came home from work, she could smell the delicious smells from the kitchen and the hallway. Her boys were already seated at the table set for dinner. Her mother-in-law was fussing around in an amusing apron. "Regina, you're the one we're waiting for. Wash your hands and join us. I'm sorry if it's not very gourmet. I'm not a chef after all," Dana said. The soft, crispy chops, the potatoes cooked in some special way. A simple salad made of fresh vegetables, but with such a delicious and flavorful dressing. Everything looked so appetizing that Regina even envied her. She surreptitiously glanced reproachfully at her husband, who shrugged his shoulders with a bewildered look. "Mommy, the food is brilliant. When did you learn to cook like that?" Shawn asked. "You know, Shawn," his mother looked at him with a sad smile. "When you live alone, you will inevitably find yourself some hobbies, so as not to die of boredom." Zach had always loved Regina's cheesecakes, but they were nothing compared to Grandma's work of art. Golden, puffy circles with raisins and dried fruit with vanilla sauce. It made Regina's mouth drool. "Grandma, they are like little sons," shouted Zach enthusiastically. "Grandma, will you make them for me from now on? Hooray!" Mother-in-law looked at her daughter-in-law with a slight chuckle. Checkmate. Okay, from now on I will cook. But I have one condition. No breakfast. I want to sleep off at least on vacation. Surely, the benefits of her mother-in-law staying at their house were noticeable. Regina didn't have to cook dinner or take a half-asleep Zach to kindergarten in a hurry. Her son used to have problems with reading. He already knew all the letters perfectly, but could not put them into words. Dana taught her grandson to read in no time. Also, Regina still doesn't know what magic spell her grandmother whispered in his ear. But suddenly, Zach began to put away his toys and fold his clothes neatly on the little chair with such an important look. The mischievous cat named Bo stopped scratching the wallpaper with his claws and pee outside the cat tray. Then it was Shawn's turn. Once after dinner, Shawn stretched himself blissfully as he got up from the table. Thanks for the delicious dinner, Mom. Are you going to your couch? Mother innocently asked, sipping her tea. Don't you want to spend some time with your son? Or wash the dishes instead of Regina? Not today. Shawn sighed heavily. I'm tired. Actually, I'm working, Mom. Really? I'll tell you a great secret. You're not the only working man in the world. Others somehow find time to take care of the child and help out around the house. I was at school from morning till night, but I spend every free minute with you. Every minute. Dana wagged her forefinger in front of her bewildered son's nose. And you, I've been living here for 2 weeks, but I haven't seen you wash a plate at least once, take out the garbage, vacuum the carpet, or play with the child without any reminders. Mom, calm down, Shawn offended. Ginger does not like it when I interfere in household chores. Oh, really? His mother raised an eyebrow in surprise. Ginger, alas, turned into Cinderella a long time ago, and you didn't even notice. If you're not helping, at least don't crap like your lousy cat. Can you stop throwing your dirty socks all over the house? Your grandpa, my daddy, never let his wife wash his socks. He was too embarrassed, you know? Shawn was ashamedly silent. Then he laughed. That's it. For my beloved women, from tomorrow, you won't see a single one of my socks. By the way, I'll go throw out the garbage. When the women stayed in the kitchen together, Dana suddenly sighed. We make so many mistakes when we're young. I was always afraid that Shawn would grow up to be a mama's boy. I wanted him to be a real man. I overdid it, I guess. He turned out to be a man who has absolutely no respect for women's work. You're a feminist, Regina smiled. I'm a realist. Shawn is a wonderful guy. He has a lot of good qualities. I love him deeply, but I have to admit, he's not a gift, Dana reflected. Neither of you is a gift. You're hardly the example of the perfect wife either. That's the way it always is. Regina was ready to communicate in a normal way, even to be friends. But every time Dana Fletcher built an invisible but unbreakable wall between them. That morning at the parking lot, Regina realized that she had forgotten car keys. She called the office to warn them that she would be a little late. Well, you can stay at home today, the editor-in-chief graciously allowed. Better finish the article in a quiet environment and send it to me tomorrow. Thank you. Regina was delighted. I'll start my work right away. She quietly entered the apartment so as not to wake up her mother-in-law, but suddenly, she heard some voices in the living room and froze with surprise. Listening, Regina realized that Dana had a video call with a friend. She was going to make her presence known, but when she heard the magic phrase, I'll probably be going home in 2 days, she froze in excitement and hid in the hallway. No, Nina, I no longer have the energy or money to stay here. You can't imagine how much money I've spent in a week to order these lunches and dinners. I won't have a penny left soon. You'll never guess how much those devils in the restaurant charge for the simplest of meals. So, tell the kids that you can't feed the whole family on your own money, advised her friend. Nina, how do I tell? On Monday, Shawn and Regina stocked the fridge. Why would I waste money if there was so much food? But did you even start the stupid game, my dear? You'd be living happily ever after, not quarreling with anyone. But no, you have to show your power. Do you think I should have told Ginger that I can't cook at the age of 50? No way. I noticed there was a restaurant nearby with great home-cooked food, so I was glad. And now, I have no idea how to get out of this trap. She complained. The weekend is coming up, and I can't order food from a restaurant in front of the kids. No, I'd rather go home and avoid the shame. Thank God Regina had never once thought to look in the freezer. The groceries were all there. Regina's cheeks lit up with indignation. She stepped resolutely into the living room. You teach your grandson not to lie, Dana Fletcher. And what about you, mature woman? Regina watched with pleasure the pale mother-in-law who flew up from her chair in a whirl. Were you eavesdropping? Yes, shouted Regina triumphantly. I was eavesdropping. And now dumb me will finally check the freezer. Really, all the groceries were there. Why did you play this idiotic game? We'll pay you back the money. Don't worry about that. The young woman was choking with tears. Did you want to humiliate me so much? But why? What the hell did I do to you? Why do you hate me so much from the first day? I've never snapped at you. I've never yelled at you. I've never turned Shawn or Zach against you. Why? Because women like you ruin everything around you. You take away the dearest and the most beloved things for no reason at all. Not because you need it, but for no reason. Who do you mean you? Regina asked in shock. Who are you talking about? Red-haired girls like you. One bitch stole my husband, Shawn's father. The other stole my son. I was speechless when I saw you for the first time. You look exactly like that bitch. Even your hair was the same red. I even thought that you were that bitch's daughter. Thank God, no. Seriously? Regina couldn't believe her ears. Are you taking revenge on me for 7 years of your suffering a century ago? He was the only man I ever loved, shouted her mother-in-law. Well, what's that got to do with me? Regina bellowed back, spewing out all the pain and resentment she had accumulated all at once. What has it got to do with me? Dana Fletcher turned and quickly walked to her room. Regina followed her. She watched her mother-in-law throwing her clothes and cosmetics into the suitcase, then started up with renowned vigor. Mom, where are you going? Are you leaving? You won't even say goodbye to your son and grandson? Aren't you going to tell them about the tricks of the sweet storyteller? Where are you going, Mom? Regina was angrily talking as if she were firing a machine gun. She was ashamed to listen to herself, but she could not help herself. This love story has already grown mossy. You have a grandson, and you still can't forget. 7 years of mocking me for such nonsense, and now you're escaping? He was the only man I ever loved, she repeated quietly. Tears streamed down her face. Regina immediately stopped herself. Why are you crying? You built this wall yourself, Dana. Her daughter-in-law's heart suddenly clenched in compassion. For the first time, she saw her mother-in-law not an iron lady, but an ordinary woman, thirsty for love and protection. Let's talk in peace. Where are you going, really? Zach will be upset, and so will Shawn. I've always liked you too, deep down in my heart. I was sincerely ready to be friends, but it's impossible to get close to you. Dana silently clasped her suitcase and took a step toward the exit. Regina blocked her way and took the suitcase from her. Dana, I am sorry. Let's have a normal conversation at least once. Let me go, Regina. Her mother-in-law yanked the suitcase back. Give me that junk. She snatched the suitcase again, threw it on the floor, and kicked it so hard that the heavy trunk flew aside like a feather and crashed against the side table, and a beautiful statuette fell to pieces. Dana and Regina, breathing heavily, stared at the shards. Then Dana said, Goal. And both women suddenly began to laugh, uncontrollably from the bottom of their hearts, throwing off the unnecessary, heavy weight of their mutual grievances. They sat on the bed for a long time, laughing, crying, apologizing, hugging, asking for forgiveness. An hour later, Dana wiped her reddened eyes with a handkerchief. Zach asked me to make cheesecakes today. What should I do now? I don't know. That's all right. There's plenty of time until dinner. I'll teach you, smiled Regina. We just need to buy some dried fruits.